What's up, Ramblers? Your favorite CEO is back. And before we begin today's podcast, make sure you hit the subscribe button to never miss an episode. And follow Assistance HQ and Offsource HQ across all platforms to stay up to date on the latest content, updates, and more. And remember, if you need a virtual assistant, visit us at offsource.tech. Now, before we begin, a word from our sponsor. Hey guys, welcome back to another wonderful episode of The Ramblings. I'm your host, Angelo Roberts, and I have today with us Steve Hoffman. He is the chairman and CEO of FounderSpace. He is the global innovation hub for entrepreneurs. He's an amazing person. He just got back from so many different countries. Without further ado, introduce yourself. Talk to us. How are you doing today, Steve?
Angelo, it's fantastic to be here. I'm very happy to be participating on your show, The Ramblings.
It's absolutely wonderful. So before we actually dive into anything, give them a 2-minute spiel on who you are, what you do, and some of the other things that you have going on.
Sure. So I have been in startups, entrepreneurship forever. So I've done 3 venture-funded startups in Silicon Valley, 2 bootstrap startups. So I've been in the trenches. I know what it's like to be an entrepreneur. I have founded FounderSpace, which is a global startup incubator and accelerator. We work all over the world. We have over 50 partners in 22 countries. And as Angelo mentioned, I am traveling all the time. I'm also an author. So I've had 3 books published. First one, Make Elephants Fly. It's all about your big dream. The elephant is your big dream, your big idea. You want to get it off the ground, but how do you make it fly? Second one, Surviving a Startup, is exactly what the title says. It's everything I've learned running my own companies, working with hundreds of entrepreneurs all around the world about what it takes to build a successful startup. How do you raise capital? How do you go to market? How do you scale your business? Everything. And the final book is The 5 Forces That Change Everything. And this is about how new emerging technologies, metaverse, AI, blockchain, CRISPR gene editing, how these core technologies are positioned to change everything about our lives, change business, change everything about the future. So those are the books. You can check them out on FounderSpace, which is our website.
It's absolutely amazing to hear, Stephen. Thank you so much for joining us today. So I want to jump right into it. You have 3 books, all of which are in the basis of entrepreneurship. As you know, we cater to entrepreneurs, but what is your entrepreneurial journey, right? You said you're a founder, you've been in the founding space for a long time within startups. How did you get your start? Was business or in startups something that you always had a passion for, or did you kind of like accidentally fall into it?
So I'm a creative guy. I love being creative. So I early on, when I was young, just in high school, I started coding my own games. I was like really into that. I loved gaming. I was a complete game geek. Captain Hoff is my nickname. It's my gamer handle. So I'm totally into that. Also loved film and media and television. I first got a degree in electrical computer engineering. Then I decided, I don't just want to code. I don't just want to build computers. I want to create something with computers. So I jumped into film and television, went and got my graduate degree from USC in cinema television, went off, worked in Hollywood, worked my way up the ladder, became a TV development exec. Then I saw a huge opportunity. I got a chance to go to Japan and work for one of the largest gaming companies at the time in the world. It was called Sega.
Oh, still around today. Nintendo, Sega. Yeah. Oh my gosh.
Yeah. So this was when Sega had just surpassed Nintendo. They were duking it out. So I went to Japan, worked for Sega, developed all these cool games, this virtual ride. It was a very early days. It kind of dates me, but Michael Jackson he came to our office. He was in our 3D ride that we were creating. It was really fun. Then I came back to Silicon Valley. I launched my first startup. Naturally, it was what I knew. It was a gaming startup. Game was called Gazillionaire. It's all about how to teach entrepreneurs how to become gazillionaires. It's really fun. It's still out there today. It's on Steam. It's still super popular. So this is years and years ago. I made Gazillionaire, launched it, did really well, made a bunch of other games, Zapitalism, Profitania, all these business simulation games teaching you how to do business in a really fun game environment. Then I launched my first venture funded startup, Spider Dance. We did interactive television. I went on to launch other game startups, other media startups. Eventually, all my friends started to come to me and say, Captain Hoff, how'd you raise the money? How'd you do it? How'd you get a business off the ground? And I started to help them out just for fun. And then I started to post their questions on my blog, called it FounderSpace. And literally more and more entrepreneurs kept coming. And so we opened up a space in San Francisco, our own accelerator. That went really well. We had all these people from all around the world coming there, governments. They started to invite us to go overseas. We started to open up accelerators overseas. And that's what we do today. That's what I do today.
That is beautiful. Oh my gosh. Now, for some of the people listening, Sega is going to be a super, super nostalgic name for a lot of people. Did you work on any of the projects that might be big today, like, Sonic, or anything like that?
I didn't work on Sonic, unfortunately. So we worked on this theme ride that went to Las Vegas with Michael Jackson. I also helped consult on projects like Virtua Racing, Virtua Fighting. Yeah, those were big ones at the time. And I played a lot of Sonic, but I knew the Sonic team. I just wasn't on that team, but it was a fantastic experience.
Okay, I think that's actually true. Now, in your first book, Make Elephants Fly, you talked about how it's really getting that big idea off the ground, right? And for a lot of entrepreneurs, that's probably the start of where challenges begin. What would you say in a lean kind of format? What would you give as being the primary things that you have to do when you're starting your first business? What do you have to do to get it off the ground?
So this is where most people make a mistake. They spend a lot of time trying to think of that big idea that they're going to get off the ground. They think, if I have the perfect idea, I will be successful. And if I don't have that great idea, I shouldn't even start. So they're just trying to think of this big, big idea that will take them all the way, make them the next Elon Musk or whatever they dream of being. My advice to every entrepreneur, forget the idea. Throw it out the window. Your idea doesn't matter. Why doesn't your idea matter? Do you know why it doesn't matter?
Execution is what matters.
Yes, because also your idea is probably wrong. Usually when you start thinking about an idea, you don't know enough. You're thinking of all these ideas. First of all, people don't do enough research. They don't go out there. There's probably somebody else. Every great idea, not every great idea, I would say, almost every great idea I ever thought of, somebody was already doing when I actually did enough research. There was somebody, this is such a great, and then you go and find. Secondly, the thing that you should be spending 80% of your time on is not the idea, not going out and raising money for sure, not building a product, not even talking to customers, which is a good idea, but don't do that right away. The first thing you should do, 80% of your time, your team. You should be building that core team. Who are going to be your co-founders? Because honestly, you never build a $1 billion company. You never even build a $10 million company by yourself. You build it with other amazing people. And if you can get those people on board early, not later, like at the beginning, they will not only help you figure out what is that golden idea, that ticket that's going to get you there, they will help you build it and bring it to market. And those are things people think they can do it alone. They only get so far alone. Sometimes they'll hire contractors to help them build something, but then they run out of money and the project just dies. And the contractors aren't committed. They're on to their next job because they didn't sign up for that. They signed up to get paid. And if you can't pay them, they're not going to pay. What you need are co-founders, like a technical co-founder who's really, really good and just this amazing hacker who can just build stuff. You need a design co-founder, somebody who just understands user interface or user experience design. You can bring them on board. Yes, sometimes need a marketing person if it's very marketing focused, but you need these people on at the beginning. And when you get those people, magic happens. You don't have to start with the right idea. And this is what I tell entrepreneurs. Don't start with an idea, because an idea tends to lock you in. You're like, we're doing this. And then once you commit to that and you start building it, you don't want to change.
Right.
I tell entrepreneurs, don't start with an idea, start with a direction. I want to make an impact here. So it can be anything. I'm passionate. I grew up in a restaurant. My parents own a restaurant. I'm passionate about using new technology, new ideas to remake the restaurant business. And I'm going to explore a lot of possibilities with my team on how we can transform this industry. Or I'm really passionate about, I look at our oceans are being decimated due to overfishing, due to pollution, due to all these problems. I want to go and I want to impact that area. If you approach it this way, you will have a much higher chance of success. And I can give you some examples why. So first of all, I'm going to give you some examples of companies that thought they had the golden idea, but they actually didn't. So there was a company out there, and it was the early days of the internet, and they said, we are going to do video dating. Video dating is going to be huge. Why would you date with just pictures when you can actually talk to the person on video? This was the early days of the internet when video wasn't even very good. Like today, it was not even very good. So they launched this video dating site. They thought it was going to be huge. And guess what happened? Nobody cared. Like nobody used it. Like they didn't care. They don't, they were like, I don't want a video date. Like the video isn't great. And it's really awkward. So their site was dying. And then they had a party with friends, and they shot some video, and they're like, how can we share this video with friends? Because there was no Dropbox, there was no cloud, none of this infrastructure existed. It's the early days of the internet. They're like, I want to get this video of our party out to all our friends. And they're like, oh, we built a video dating site. We could just upload it to our video dating site and literally just share the link with our friends. They shared that link with their friends, and all of a sudden their friends are like, oh my God, that's awesome. I want to share a video. Can we share a video?
Let me guess. Vimeo.
YouTube.
Oh my God. Really?
Vimeo. Yes. Vimeo came after YouTube. This was YouTube. Yeah, people don't realize it. So the YouTube founders, they didn't start out by saying, we want to build the biggest video broadcast internet network in the world. We're going to totally change entertainment and how people share and do videos. No, they started by solving a very simple problem. And the problem was not video dating. Yes, that wasn't a problem people had. The problem was really, how do you share a video by a link? And then everybody started uploading their videos to YouTube. They rebranded, called it YouTube. Everybody started uploading videos. Then they became a repository for videos. It wasn't a big idea. It was a small idea, a very small idea that had big repercussions. So this is what I tell entrepreneurs. Look for small ideas and then start building these and see where they take you. I'll give you another example. Another company you may know of, and you can guess this one. So they started out, they were graduate students. They wanted to do help professors find research papers online in the early days of the internet. It's very hard for a professor to find which research papers were posted on some servers on the internet. So they developed an algorithm to make it super easy to find these research papers. All of a sudden, they saw that, wow, our algorithm's really useful. What if we applied this algorithm to search in general?
Okay, so I'm gonna guess Google, but prelude by saying Yahoo because I'm getting a feeling of like maybe Yahoo. So, but I'm going Google or Yahoo.
Yeah, those were the early ones, right? Google and Yahoo. Yahoo did an indexed way where they were just indexing pages. They didn't really have a good search engine. It was Google. This was Google. Now, Google, when Google started, the founders said, Sergey Brin and Larry Page, they were like, we're doing a nonprofit. We're doing a nonprofit, which is ironic because it's one of the most profitable companies in the history of humankind. But this shows you their original idea was a nonprofit to help academics find research papers online. But then they stumbled across a much bigger opportunity using what they had developed, just like the YouTube guys, just like if you look on Groupon, it was also a nonprofit. If you look at Yelp, the whole ratings on Yelp were an afterthought. Oh, maybe people want to rate stuff. That wasn't what they were originally building, but that became the whole product. You look at Twitter, it was an early
What was
podcast.
Yelp originally building? I feel like it was like online yellow pages or something.
Yeah, something like that, where you could look up businesses, but the whole rating, they didn't know that people would want to rate. They didn't think people would want to rate. Like, why would somebody want to rate another business? That, people don't think of these ideas until they see them happen. And this is what I'm telling you. If you want to get that big idea, if you want to make your elephant fly, start with a small idea, a small real idea, and find out what people really do. I'll give you another really fun example. So there's this guy out there, and he was building a game. So he was building a game. He thought, I want to be a game maker, and he made this amazing game that he thought was amazing. Well, apparently the people playing the game weren't that interested. So what do you do when you make a product that nobody really engages with? You start adding features. So you don't want to give up. Like, you don't want to say this product doesn't work, which is almost always the case. You just keep adding more features. So he added these features. He added this like photo sharing feature on his game. And he found out that of the players that came to the game, the ones who stuck around were actually spending more time with this photo sharing feature than they were playing his actual game. He got the idea because he's smart. Oh, let's break off this photo sharing thing and launch it as a new site. That became Flickr, the first social photo sharing site in the world.
What I had in my head. That's what I had in my head.
Yeah, and it wasn't his idea. This same entrepreneur, he sold Flickr to Yahoo, made a bunch of money. He quit Yahoo after a certain amount of time, launched a second startup. His second startup, he thought was going to be a big idea. This time he understood what to do. He was going to make another game. He was going to make a really amazing game. He raised millions and millions of dollars. He could do it right now. He would show the world that he was a great game designer. So he made this amazing game of what he thought. Again, the users came. They didn't care. His game was dying. He had all this investors' money. He started to feel pressure, and he's like, what did I do last time? Last time I looked at something that was working in my system, and then I came up with like where I should actually go. This is why don't worry about your idea, right? Just get started on something. He's scrambling around, and he looks at his engineers. They had hacked ICQ, this instant messaging software, to allow them to communicate internally within their company better and coordinate and collaborate better through instant messaging. Which company was this?
Okay. Is it B2B or is it like B2C?
B2B.
Slack.
Yes, exactly. You got it. So you're nailing these. So basically, what he did was he broke that piece off. He said, my engineers have hacked something together. What if we could make it a product? It seems to be really useful for my engineers. I bet other companies would like it. He broke it off, called it Slack, put it out there, and boom, became a decacorn.
Wow.
Huge, huge company, went public. So it just goes to show you, most of the great ideas out there are not obvious at the beginning. And honestly, if they were obvious at the beginning, somebody would already be doing them. So wow. Don't count on yourself being brilliant at the beginning when you don't have data, when you aren't actually out there with something. First, get that team. All these companies had one thing in common. They built great teams at the beginning, really great co-founders, really great teams. And that allowed them to get to the next step.
Oh my gosh, this is all okay. So you, as being the CEO and the founder of FounderSpace, you work with a lot of entrepreneurs, a lot of founders, a lot of people who think they have big ideas, people that have that small ideas, and I'm sure you see a lot of people in that same situation of the examples that you gave have to pivot. What are some of the important things? Because I want to go back to founders in a little bit, because I actually have a personal experience in that, but in terms of how companies go from one idea and then pivot to something else, especially if they maybe have taken VC funding, how does a founder go about making that pivot, or even just a small rebranding in those kinds of situations where they see this is not working, but then they would like to take this spin off and then maybe that might work? How do they then make that pivot?
It's the hardest thing entrepreneurs ever have to do, because usually it means throwing out a lot of work, as well as throwing out your dream that you had for your previous idea. And it means that you have, in a lot of entrepreneurs things, it means you've failed. Like you literally, your idea didn't work. Does that mean you're a failure? Well, it's only a failure usually if you don't pivot. More startups die by not pivoting than by pivoting. In fact, Berkeley and Stanford did a study, and they found out that startups that pivot 0 times or 1 time are much more likely to fail than startups that pivot 2 or 3 times. You pivot more than 3 times, you are again, the chance of failure goes way up. So there's kind of an optimal number of pivots out there. Usually it's like around 2 times before you figure it out. And if you pivot 0 times, your failure rate is much higher. So just keep that in mind. Now, entrepreneurs come to me all the time because I run a startup incubator, and they're like, Captain Hoff, I've been working on this concept for 2 years, and, it's really tough, and we're trying to get it, going, and, should I quit? Should I quit? And you know what I tell them? Every time they ask me this, I say the same thing. Absolutely. Quit. Please quit. Please quit right now. Quit what you're doing. Don't quit your company. Don't quit being an entrepreneur, but quit what you're doing and just go start in a new direction. Because if they are coming to me, I'm not being a sadist, right? I don't want to I don't like to see entrepreneurs fail. In fact, I want them to succeed. But what they're doing is they're asking me for permission. They already know. You're never going to ask somebody if you should quit until you've tried everything. Like, as an entrepreneur, to make like, once you've put in your hard-earned money, your time, especially if you raise money from other friends or family or investors, going back to them and telling them everything they spent their money on is garbage, right? It just doesn't work, is really, really hard. So really talented entrepreneurs, when it comes to pivoting, I tell them, this is why I told you not to lock in on an idea. When you want to start a company, don't say we're doing specifically this. Say, pick a more general thing that gives you wiggle room. So you can go back to your investors, you can go back to your friends and family who you took money from, you can go to your employees and say, look, it wasn't like, we are going to change the fishing industry. It may be that we create new smart technology for fishing vessels to fish more efficiently and they don't get all this bycatch. It may be that we reinvent, the nets so that they don't pollute the water so much. It may be that, there's something in the fishing industry. But just because you have a great idea for the fishing industry does not mean the fishing industry will adopt it. Right? Because they have their own priorities. Like, you could literally build the best product in the world for the fishing industry, and they're like, we don't want to spend the money. Like, because we don't care about depleting the oceans. We don't care about, pollution. We just want to literally make more money today. And that's a lot of industries. If you can combine your big vision about making the industry better with something of value to those people who will have to actually use your product, that's when you get solutions that work in the real world. And so, just like YouTube I gave with the dating site, video dating sounds really cool when you first say it. And but when people actually want to use it, they don't want to use it. It doesn't matter how great their video dating platform was that they had built. It could be picture perfect with no bugs, great user interface, like really well executed. But if people aren't using it, if people don't care to use it, then it has no value. So this is why I say, go into a space and literally from day one, say, we're going to explore. We are explorers in this space. We don't have one idea. And it also takes your ego out of it. Doesn't have to be your idea as the CEO. It can be anybody's idea, your co-founder's idea, some idea you just stumble across from somebody else. Somebody gives you feedback and that triggers the idea. What you want to do is get whatever ideas you have. You look at your ideas and you say, we're going to prioritize. We're going to try this first. If it doesn't work, we're going to quickly go to idea B. If that doesn't work, we're going to reevaluate. Maybe we'll have a new idea. Maybe it will be idea C on our list. And we'll just keep trying and trying and trying different things until we can prove that in the real world, there are real people out there who absolutely need our product and love our product. So I always tell entrepreneurs, if you want to know if you should quit, go out to, let's say, 100 potential customers, right? And I've told entrepreneurs this. They say, is my product great? Will this take off? I'm like, I'm not your customer. Like, I don't use that product. I'm not into like, this type of sport you're doing or whatever it is. Go ask 100 people who are actually going to use and buy your product. Right. Go ask them. And they've come back to me and they said, I went and I asked a lot of people about the product, my exact target customer. And all of them said, oh, this is really nice. Come back after you've built it and we'll try it out. And I turned to them and I said, so you're going to build this? And they're, yeah, absolutely. We didn't get any negative responses. And I'm like, you know what? You're going to totally fail.
Mm.
You are going to totally fail because they told you it looks interesting, looks nice, come back when it's ready and we'll try it out. Do you know what they just told you?
They want to
That
try something for free.
they'll never use your product because the reaction you need when people want to use your product is this. Oh my God, can I try that today? I need that today. How can I get it? What can I do to get you? Can I pay you? Can I be an early beta tester? What do I have to do to get this? Is so cool, this idea. If you get that response, then there is a chance you'll succeed. Because honestly, people, if you go out, if it's a B2, it doesn't matter if it's mostly, it's really easy if it's a B2B product because you can literally target your customers exactly and know if they want it. You can literally go to them and most people are busy. Business people are busy. They have like all these competing priorities. And honestly, like in your own life, if you have probably your top 5 priorities, any listener out there, you have your top 5 priorities. If somebody comes out to you with something that is not on your top priority list and you look at it, what are you going to say? Oh, that's interesting. And then you'll say, come back later because you don't want to be mean.
Right.
You want to get rid of them. Come back later when you built it and we'll try it out. They may try it out, but if it isn't on that, if it doesn't map to their top 5 priorities, they are never really going to pay for it. They're never going to put in the time to learn it and really integrate it with their systems. There's a high barrier to entry to adopt any new product.
I agree. People, oh my gosh, this such great value. Now I want to circle back real quick because we were talking about founders. Oh my gosh, I hope you guys are absolutely enjoying this episode. Steve, you are knocking it out the water. All right, so when we talked about having a co-founder, for a lot of you that have been listening to the podcast, you guys know, I started as a solo founder. Said I can't do this. I want to have a team. Found a co-founder. Did a small raise. No longer have a co-founder, and now I'm doing things with a very small team that I think is absolutely capable of building an amazing product that allows for small business owners to really bridge the gap of helping get their end of the day stuff done. So the question for I think people want to know is, what is the criteria, or what would you give as like a criteria for what people should look for when they're going to find their co-founder, make this initial founding?
Yes. There are different people. There's some people who are really great at being in big corporations. Like you could hire the VP of Twitter who just got laid off and have them come work for you. But you need to understand that as a startup, you don't need people to manage people because you don't have people. You need doers, right? You need people who are going to roll up their sleeves, get it done. There are a few criteria for co-founders. So number one, a lot of people will bring on co-founders that are really committed. Like they have another job. I was just running an accelerator program for these European startups in San Francisco. And one of the startup founders, he brought on a co-founder, and the co-founder's a really great guy. They had worked together, so they knew each other well. The co-founder's very smart. But he was willing to commit full time to the startup, and his co-founder has a family, kids that he has. The co-founder wasn't willing to quit his job; he could work part time. Right. So they started this company together. The one guy quit his job. He's single. He's like, I'm going full time. I'm going 100% into it. The other guy didn't. He said he'll come on later, as soon as they gain traction. Well, we all think that's going to happen in a few months. We all want to believe it. Several years later, this thing is still going on, right? And finally, they're starting to gain traction. They have a big deals in the pipeline, everything else. Co-founders still won't quit. They will not quit, driving the other founder absolutely crazy. And I've seen this over and over and over. It was literally because he's doing all the work and the other guy's just along for the ride, and he's getting all these shares, and he will not give up his shares. So you really need to be sure at the beginning they are committed. And a lot of them, they'll hire somebody working like at Google as their engineer. The Google guy will be super enthusiastic, coding away at the nights and weekends for this early stage startup. And then all of a sudden it gets hard. And the first version of the product doesn't really take off, and you need to go and totally redo it, because this is what happens. We already talked about that. And then the Google person is their boss at Google is like demanding a bunch of stuff, and they're like, I'm too busy for this. And they just drop out, or they slow the pace to a glacier pace, right? Where they're just doing, and It's excruciating for the startup founder, because so I like, if they're not committed, if they aren't all in, don't bring them on board as a co-founder.
Why did I not have this conversation before I did my co-founder? Oh my gosh. Oh my!
You've been there. You've been there. You know it.
Because that's how I started this. I had like the reason I was able to do it is because like I had like 4 weeks of built up like checks that my boss had to pay me because like payroll issues and stuff like that.
Yes.
So on January 1st, December 15th of 2019, I put my 2 weeks in. I said I had spent maybe 3 months already building like my outline, because I'm a service-based person. So I was building out my SOPs, my plan, like how I'm going to market. I was planning on turning my boss into my first client. I said I'm quitting. She didn't turn into a client, so now I have like nothing. And I was like door dashing to make ends meet. I was like, I want to do a raise. I know I need a co-founder. Went to find a co-founder. I guess he wasn't fully pot committed. I kind of like he had all of the other things, and I was like, okay, I'm pot committed. I can take half. Like I could use your skill, but it was if it's part time, that's fine. And then the part time kept dwindling and dwindling to even less part time and less part time.
The more work it gets, the more it dwindles.
Yes, the more work that's needed, the more it dwindles. Oh my! So, okay. So I guess I had to go through a situation like that. Let's help people that might be in a situation. A lot of people
do. So you need to have that conversation, that hard conversation right up front. You know, are you committed? Are you committed not to 4 weeks to 8 weeks? Are you committed to the bitter end with this? You know, do you have enough? Can you survive a year even if you have to eat bread and beans and nothing else? You know, will you make the sacrifice with me? We'll figure out a way. But are you there? You need that. Number two, you need people that are hackers, like hacker mentality, in that I don't need, a fancy computer. I don't need all this, stuff. I am willing to figure out a way, any way it takes to get this off the ground. And I can do it myself. I'm not somebody who just needs to manage people and hire people, which in that previous example I gave you, the guy was good at managing, but he wasn't really good at doing anything. Right. His co-founder, on top of not quitting, he really couldn't execute. They had to hire other people. You want somebody who can roll up their sleeves and do it. And then number three, you want somebody who's totally passionate about what they do. So if they're an engineer, they're the type, and they're always downloading the latest software from the internet, the SDKs, they're fooling around with them. That's what they do in their spare time because they love it. If they're a marketing person, they're reading up on all the latest platforms, they're testing them out, they're first on these platforms, they're experimenting, they're reading all the latest, always educating themselves about new marketing techniques and what's out there. These are the people you want as your co-founder. So you want people, you don't want who you know, who isn't great. Like you may know some people and that you think those are who you should approach, but they're not top tier. If you are going to build a breakout company, a company that could beats out all the competition and actually grows like crazy, then you're going to need an A team, an A+ team. You're not going to build an A+ company with C+ people. Right? C+ people are fine to work in an established company and kind of do what they're told. Right. You need A+ people, and it takes a lot of time. It takes a lot of work. It's not easy. If you want to hire an engineer, like a great engineer, you probably don't know that person, because if you probably the great engineers are fully employed, unless they were working at Twitter, they're fully employed, and and because they're in demand. What you need to do is be savvy. So you need to go to the person who isn't just an engineer, but it's an engineer who wants to do a startup and is dying to do a startup. And they are willing to take the same risk you are because they have the same dream you have. And you probably don't know that person. So you go where the engineers are. Go to the meetups for the latest technologies out there. Whatever those latest, if you're a blockchain company, go to the latest blockchain meetups. If you're, a database company, go to the MongoDB, Node.js meetups, or whatever they are, to figure out who is totally passionate about these things. Go to the blogs and the websites, the forums online, start communicating with people. You will find these people, and they will be the ones you should bring on your team.
That's absolutely amazing right there. Oh my gosh. I want to move into your second book, because we've talking a lot about what sounds like the realm of surviving a startup. And so
yes, we've moved into surviving
we moved into surviving a startup, which is kind of like we're moving in order here. Okay, so we've talked about, getting co-founders. We've talked about, building an amazing team, the effort it takes, and all of that, pivoting. Now, in terms of surviving a startup, what is the TLDR, like the too long didn't read of surviving a startup? And what are some of the ways that co-founders, founders, and even just people that are looking to work at a startup can survive being at a startup, whether it's, one that's going to fail or one that's going to succeed? I want to hear both, because not a lot of times do we talk about surviving the failing, but surviving to succeed. So how do you survive when you fail?
Yeah, surviving when you fail is all about mindset. It's literally, you have to go into a startup saying failure is fine, because honestly, the majority of startups do not survive. Your odds are stacked against you. So to survive a startup that's failing, you have to understand that failure is part of the process. And you are going to fail over. And if this startup fails, it's a company that failed. It's not you that failed. You never fail as long as you do two things. Number one, you learn something about what you did, right and wrong. You reflect on it, right? And you understand, oh, I could do that better. I could be so much better. And I'm committed to being better and constantly learning. If you are doing that, you will not fail, because whatever startup experience you have, whether it's a wild success or a total disaster, you've learned a lot. So you've succeeded, right? Number two, if you are committed to trying again. So if you go in there and say, well, if this crashes and burns, that's fine. I'll learn a lot and I'll be way better the next time. Those are true entrepreneurs. That's when you have entrepreneurship in your DNA.
So glad you said that, in your DNA. Oh my gosh, people would think this is not the first time I've tried to start something throughout being young, but oh my gosh. Okay, so we've gone through a lot of things, I feel like, and I kind of want to bring it back, circle around, bring it personal, bring it back to FounderSpace. You see a lot of founders come in, out, you help a lot of companies grow. What are some of the best hacks you've seen in terms of company growth?
Company growth. So if you want to grow a company, I'll give you a few key hacks. Number one, you need to look for businesses that are naturally scalable. And what do I mean by this? So I like businesses where when you acquire a customer, see a customer, there's two costs in your startup that dwarf everything else. Your employees, number one, so you have to get great employees. We talked about that already. Number two, acquiring customers. When you acquire a customer, you want a business model where you never let that customer go. Because think about it, every time you acquire a customer, it costs a lot of money. Like we all know this if we're in business, right? We want to not only get that customer, we want to lock that customer into our product or service, and then have
the best acquisition.
Yes, and then keep giving them value, because the only way to keep extracting money from them is to give them more value than they are giving you money, right? So you need to bring them in, lock them in, and continually give them more and more and more value. If that's not at the core of what your business is, your business model, your idea, your product, your service, then it's very hard to scale. You look at most of the great companies out there and they lock their customers. I don't care if it's Google, literally you name it, the razor blade, Gillette razor blades, right? You buy their razor blades, they make great razor blades, and they keep you buying more and more razor blades, right? Over and over and over again. The Keurig coffee maker, like you buy those little cups, those K-cups, you just keep giving them money. Oh, they didn't just sell you a coffee maker once. If you just sell them a coffee maker once, hard to grow that business, especially for a startup. Those are big established companies can do that. Like they're manufacturing lots and lots of products. They have a big brand. They're putting them out there. But if you are a startup and you want to grow fast, you don't just sell somebody once and then have to go out and find new customers again. You just keep getting them, keep growing them. Number two, you want to think about your products in terms of how can you build barriers to entry to your competitors, right? What does your product do that competitors can't do? And once you get them into your system, how can you keep them from going away to competition? Because there are a lot of people, and they'll put something up on Kickstarter and stuff, it'll sell like crazy, and then lo and behold, in China, people are looking, 2 months later, they have all these knockoffs that literally do the same thing. They didn't have to put any money or time into R&D. They know they run these factories and they can lower the costs and beat them on price. And then your margins get squeezed. You need high margins. So what you need to do is that what I tell entrepreneurs to do is don't build products or services. This seems counterintuitive. I don't want you to build a product or service. I want you to build an ecosystem. An ecosystem. The really great companies out there that lock people in and continue to provide value are ones that once you bring them in, the users themselves, your customers themselves, whether they're customers or users, they are continually creating more value for everybody else in the ecosystem. You can also bring in third parties that contribute to this ecosystem, creating more value for themselves and for everybody else. Let me give you a few examples. Facebook, like we're all creating the content for Facebook. Like if you're on Instagram, right, you are creating value for that ecosystem, whether you know it or not, right? You're bringing in your friends, you're creating content, and the more you invest, the more valuable it becomes to you as well as everybody else in the system. You get this network effect. Companies like Salesforce on the B2B side. Why is Salesforce? It's no longer the best CRM software. It's not the leanest. It's not the most user-friendly. It's not, there's nothing about Salesforce that's exceptional, except that they built an exceptional ecosystem. They literally have all these third-party developers who created all this amazing software on their platform that provides so much value that when you go to Salesforce, you don't just get Salesforce, you get Salesforce times 1,000 or 2,000, right? All these things that they can do for you. No competitor coming into the market can compete with them. They may have cheaper software, they may have more user-friendly software, they may have leaner software, but at the end of the day, they don't have the ecosystem.
Oh
so
my God. Oh, I know you have a hard deadline. You have to schedule another episode. This
okay.
is okay. Okay. So now I'm going to get selfish for a second. Let's say you were running a virtual assistant startup, right? It's really kind of like, let's call it DoorDash, right? Let's say DoorDash,
Okay.
but instead of delivering food, they're delivering a spreadsheet.
Mhm.
Think of it like that, right? What would be your way of creating an ecosystem or a community around that particular kind of business?
So you have to, and I'm going to make this short because of time,
Mhm.
but number one, you have to think of what can our users do to make this more valuable to themselves? Like will they be able to, is there a way we can give them to invest in this platform so that they aren't just using our product, they're actually making the product more valuable to themselves and to everybody else in there. And you have to start to map out different ways, brainstorm on all the different ways that the more people that use it, the more valuable it becomes. Number two, can we bring in third parties to actually develop on top of this plugins or add-ons, apps? Apple did this with the App Store, Microsoft did it with software, right? To actually make what we're offering much more valuable in the future. These are the things that turn a product or service, whether it's virtual assistants or anything else, into a platform with an ecosystem.
Okay. I know I'm cut on time, so what I'm going to do is move into what we call like our super question, right? At the end of every episode, what we do is we always like to ask the owners and founders like a very pointed and directed question. And so my question that I have directed towards you is really it was kind of going to be around building an ecosystem, but in terms of let's narrow down the word to what people kind of know a lot, which is community. Talking about building like community content, getting out that marketing, that is at least in the beginning sense the organic growth. Where are the avenues or channels that you see work the best or work greatest for small stage startups? What channels and avenues do you see in terms that they can access to be able to gain clients?
The channels that work the best are the ones where your customers are active. So if all of the type of people you're targeting are on LinkedIn, you're going to use LinkedIn, right? That's going to be a great channel. If it's more like you're a travel company and all your, the potential customers you have out there are all on Instagram, sharing their travel stuff, Instagram. If it's kind of a media stuff, you may want to be on TikTok. It really, really depends on your business. You have to know your customers. You have to know everything. I tell entrepreneurs, you need to know everything about your customer. Who exactly is your customer? Where do they hang out? What do they do? There's a lot of smaller channels out there that people don't even know about. Forums like Reddit forums and things like that could be much more valuable than any of these general ones that I just mentioned, right? Very specific ones that are industry focused. Like if you're in pets, there's some pet blogs out there and some pet forums and stuff that are, they may not have huge audiences. Their audience may not be in the billions like Facebook. It may be in, they may have 50,000 members, but those members, like, they are all your customers and they're all super active. If you get on that blog, if you contribute to that blog, if you write guest posts, if you are in the conversations on there, it could be huge. There are influencers out there who may be, targeting pets and stuff. If you're a pet startup, that you should be doing whatever you can to do to reach them. And speak in their language, find out what resonates with them. This is a really important thing. Like, what do they want? Not what you want. It's not about you selling your product to them. It's about finding out what they want and seeing where that aligns with what you do. And if it doesn't align, it's not going to be a good marketing campaign. It won't work. You won't engage them.
Yeah, I cannot wait till this part 2, man. You guys, I'm so much. The clips are going to go crazy for this. Okay. What we do is at the end, you being the CEO of FounderSpace, that's a suite. Thinking of a different
FounderSpace.
FounderSpace. Suite is something else. So in regards to FounderSpace, where can we find you? What is it like? If someone wants to go through the accelerator program, how would they go through it? If someone would like to connect with you in any kind of way, how do they go about it?
Super easy. FounderSpace.com. Just go to FounderSpace.com. You go there, you can contact me directly. Like, there's a form on there. You can just reach out to me directly. Tons of videos. So I have tons of stuff out there for free of all my books: Make Elephants Fly, Surviving a Startup, The 5 Forces. Really great place to go. If you want to apply, there's an application form right there. You just click on it, you apply. We tried to keep it pretty short, really the essential information. We look at every business plan, and if it's a good fit, we bring you on board. And also, I'm on every social network. So I'm a social guy. You can find me everywhere. Just look for Steve Hoffman, Captain Hoff, FounderSpace. You will find.
Absolutely wonderful. I am personally so happy to have you on the podcast today. It has been absolutely wonderful. I'm going to put all of the links in the description. So if you guys are looking for either Make Elephants Fly, Surviving a Startup, or The 5 Forces, all of those links will be in the description, as well as his social media and the link to FounderSpace. Thank you so much for joining me today, Steve. And actually, I will buy one of your books and I will be giving it away on the podcast to whoever would like any of the books.
Wow. Thank you, Angelo.
That'll be my gift to the audience, as well as you, in terms of purchasing a book. So thank you so much, Steve. It's been absolutely amazing. Is there any closing words that you'd like to say before you jump off?
I just want to say I love your podcast. I love your enthusiasm. Like, you got it, Angelo. You are a great podcast host.
I try. Thank you so much. And again, it's been a wonderful time rambling with all of you ramblers, and I'll ramble with you tomorrow.
Hey Ramblers, that's it. Podcast is over. Don't leave yet though. If you enjoyed today's episode, make sure to like, share, and subscribe to the podcast, and follow us on YouTube at OffSource HQ. We'll see you next time.